From the moment man began to work with machines, the seemingly impossible became possible. Man's ingenuity created tools. Tools allowed us to build devices. Devices became machines. Together, man and machines often brought to our lives a kind of magic. Today, we are on the precipice of a new man and machine partnership, the age of the intelligent digital workforce, a workforce comprised of people working with software bots, doing things we could not have imagined just a few years ago is here. Automation Anywhere pioneered this, until now, inconceivable environment by asking a simple question. Why, after decades of automation technology, can we automate only about 20% of the things which should be automated? This foundational notion gave birth to the intelligent digital workforce. Today, Automation Anywhere delivers the only intelligent digital workforce platform, which provides enterprises with robotic process automation for rule-based business processes. Intelligent IQ bots, capable of learning by observing human behavior, and predictive business analytics embedded seamlessly into bots called Bot Insight. The results are astounding. It enables businesses to automate 5 times the number of business processes at a fifth of the cost. This is the modern enterprise. Automation Anywhere envisioned the human bot workforce with a singular clarity. Today, hundreds of multi-billion-dollar enterprises are liberating their human workforces and automating parts of or entire processes with unprecedented accuracy and efficiency in ways unimaginable just a few years ago. The results are profound. Delivering the industry's most intuitive, simplest to scale RPA platform, Automation Anywhere is changing the way businesses work, the way human beings work. With more offices throughout the world than any other provider, Automation Anywhere has enterprise-grade resources wherever customers require them. With more employees dedicated to customer success than any other provider, Automation Anywhere has the industry's highest customer satisfaction rate by far. And in an age where bulletproof security is paramount, Automation Anywhere's intelligent digital workforce platform performs with the industry's highest, most stringent security standards anywhere in the world. These are just a few of the reasons more enterprises choose Automation Anywhere's intelligent digital workforce platform over any other. Man working together with machine, this time with unprecedented business results in the modern enterprise.
Good morning. Good afternoon and good evening to all of you, depending on where you are from the Greenwich Meridian line. A warm welcome from me and from the Advancement Office and from the Africa Week Lead team as we welcome you to today's session of the Alumni Speaker Series, which happens to be the last session we are going to have for this term that we have finished online. I am Charles Ndlovu, an IB2 of the Zimbabwean nationality, and today I'll be a host and your moderator. So, as we begin, I would like to advise that people switch off their microphones so that we prevent echoing of sounds and so that we have a perfect sound. And also, I would advise that those that have questions addressed to today's speaker, may they type them out on the chat box. And during his presentation, if you feel a burning question within you, may you type it and send it privately to me or to him. And so these questions are going to be addressed at the end of the session after he is done with his presentations. Without wasting much of our time, I would love to introduce to us today our speaker, who happens to be an alumni, as this is an alumni speaker series. I would like us to welcome Thabo Ndlela, who was a student in Waterford, Kamhlaba from 1991 to 1992, before some of us like me were born. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Amani Business. So Amani Business is a digital transformation company that leverages fourth industrial revolution technologies to solve business problems such as robotic process automation, RPA, and artificial intelligence, AI, as some of you might be aware of it. Thabo has more than 20 years experience in information communication technologies, particularly in banking and e-commerce. He has worked as a group chief information officer of Johannesburg Stock Exchange, JSE in South Africa, listed companies such as Tiger Brands, Sun International, Barclays Africa, APSA, and Standard Bank. He is an industry thought leader, research contributor, and regular speaker at ICT conferences such as the Gartner, IT Web, Brainstorm CIO forums, and luckily in today's Alumni Speaker Series. He has been nominated for the Institute of Information Technology Professionals South Africa Visionary CIO a few times. He is really a great leader. So we'd love to welcome Thabo Ndlela to today's session. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, thanks, Charles. Thank you very much. It sounds like a long obituary that you're reading. I almost ask who are you talking about? But thank you very much, everyone, for attending. So I was a student, definitely at Waterford many years ago. And I think it was at Waterford that most probably I started thinking a bit more broadly about solving business problems. Funny enough, when I left Waterford, I wanted to be a medical doctor. And I was accepted at a few medical schools, including UCT, which is where I went. And it was not long, actually, during the year at UCT that not only did I meet the woman that I got married to for 20 years, but also then decided actually on a different path than actually taking a medical journey. But I started realizing that actually engineering was a lot more actually suited to what I wanted to do. So I think the past 25 years or so, I've been doing nothing else but trying to solve business problems. And one of them obviously has been process actually automation. I'm not going to repeat in terms of actually everything else that I have done. But I do want to actually today talk about business actually process automation, in particular using robotics. And it's one of my favorite subjects, obviously, in a sense that not only did I obviously invest actually in the topic, but I also started actually a business in it. For today, I want to cover three things. One, I want to talk about the concept of digital workforce, which is robotics, process automation, and artificial intelligence. And also, I want to talk a bit more around the business benefits actually of that. Having set the context with the video, hopefully some of you had joined. I was trying to save time to actually jump into the video so that we actually bring a much better context. But actually, I may probably actually play it again towards the end if we still have some time. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about the Automation Anywhere University, which is more a robotics process automation. And I do want to set the context that I speak a lot about actually Automation Anywhere is one of the products actually that we have in automating business processes. I'll set the context actually for it. Around about 2014, I had worked pretty much as a group CIO for various organizations as actually counted, particularly in the banks. And I spent a lot of time actually in APSA looking after the entire technology for the group. And then I started a business in 2014. It was an ERP software company called IFS. It's still actually a part of what we actually deliver in our business. And most probably, if you look at actually in the top right, we talk about ERP. And then we bought a business in Internet of Things and IoT business. which actually is focused on industrial automation. It's more, funny enough, actually, my career started with PLC programming. I was programming machines in manufacturing, which is what actually the IoT business is really actually all about. It's about automating processes actually in a factory, in a mine, and then we obviously combine it with the ERP solution, which is more organizing actually information using our product called IFS. And today I'm going to be talking about obviously robotics process automation. It's a business we started about 2 years ago when I left corporate, and I decided it's an area of growth. It's an area that has actually fast-tracked business process automation using robotics, and I'm going to be defining for today what that is. And then obviously then the advanced actually component of it actually is machine learning, which I'm also going to talk about. Now, we have decided as a business that we will focus only on automation anyway. It's the biggest product actually globally. We're one of the 3 strategic supplier of the product in this region. And not only do we obviously supply, we install and we automate business processes. And we've been focusing a lot on banks. We do reconciliation, for most of the banks in South Africa, where there's an organization called BankServe. They do the inter-transmission or inter-reconciliation. If you happen to make a payment at Standard Bank and you want to pay somebody who's actually at Nedbank, we will do actually the reconciliation in the back, actually using robotic process automation. We just also just finished a component on fraud analytics. So we were detecting fraud using robotics actually automation. So that's the gist of our business. It's the only PR slide you will see. And obviously, I'd like to probably, for those that most probably have missed the video, and just play it one more time, because I just want you to get the context actually of what is it that we're talking about when you talk about digital workforce.
From the moment man began to work with machines, the seemingly impossible became possible. Man's ingenuity created tools. Tools allowed us to build devices. Devices became machines. Together, man and machines often brought to our lives a kind of magic. Today, we are on the precipice of a new man and machine partnership. The age of the intelligent digital workforce. A workforce comprised of people working with software bots, doing things we could not have imagined just a few years ago, is here. Automation Anywhere pioneered this, until now, inconceivable environment by asking a simple question. Why? After decades of automation technology, can we automate only about 20% of the things which should be automated? This foundational notion gave birth to the intelligent digital workforce. Today, Automation Anywhere delivers the only intelligent digital workforce platform, which provides enterprises with robotic process automation for rule-based business processes. Intelligent IQ bots, capable of learning by observing human behavior, and predictive business analytics embedded seamlessly into bots called Bot Insight. The results are astounding. It enables businesses to automate 5 times the number of business processes at a 1/5 of the cost. This is the modern enterprise. Automation Anywhere envisioned the human bot workforce with a singular clarity. Today, hundreds of multi-billion-dollar enterprises are liberating their human workforces and automating parts of or entire processes with unprecedented accuracy and efficiency in ways unimaginable just a few years ago. The results are profound. Delivering the industry's most intuitive, simplest to scale RPA platform, Automation Anywhere is changing the way businesses work, the way human beings work. With more offices throughout the world than any other provider, Automation Anywhere has enterprise-grade resources wherever customers require them. with more employees dedicated to customer success than any other provider. Automation Anywhere has the industry's highest customer satisfaction rate by far. And in an age where bulletproof security is paramount, Automation Anywhere's intelligent digital workforce platform performs with the industry's highest, most stringent security standards anywhere in the world. These are just a few of the reasons more enterprises choose Automation Anywhere's intelligent digital workforce platform over any other. Man working together with machine, this time with unprecedented business results in the modern enterprise.
So it was quite important for me, obviously, just to set the scene once again for those that haven't joined. And I think everybody is well aware of how much automation has taken place. I'm counting far back, you know, to 1998. I started working, I was doing PLC, which was actually more process manufacturing, actually automation. Then afterwards, there was many systems like the ERP, like SAP and Oracle. And then obviously now we move into cloud solution, there's more apps and all of that. But funny enough, actually with all of that, there's still not enough actually automation that is actually taking place. And the context of actually of our problem today is that if we still have so much that business processes that's not automated, it's still manual. And then let's actually look at then how do we then resolve it with actually digital workforce. So, and in this context here, we're showing obviously in terms of the level, the increased level of complexity from simple systems far back in the days where like mainframe, and some of you probably don't know what that is. And then obviously the likes of ERP, Sage, SAP, and all of those. And you still find that actually with all the multiple systems in all organizations, or even universities for that matter, there's still a pool of people that sit there. What they do, they actually do processing of manual activities. So for example, if you actually supply Waterford with goods and services, you'll have to actually generate an invoice for them in order for them to pay you. In order to do that, somebody will have to capture that invoice, actually capture it onto an ERP software or finance software. And once that has happened, that it has to go through approvals actually internally. So there's still a lot of actually manipulation by human being. In larger businesses, particularly the businesses where we actually participate, and we've seen that there's actually a lot more manual processes that are actually still there. And that's what we actually trying to set up actually the context. So what is robotic process automation? I'm sure you can Google it, but the short version of it is that if you look in far left, we're talking about it's actually a piece of software that can be configured to be able to perform specific tasks. And there's something that we call it bots, and I'll explain in terms of actually, when you talk about the bots, it's actually the short of a robotic, but we call it bots for many reasons. And what it does, it takes the mundane, repetitive information or task within a business, it automated that, and it would actually remove the manual process. So for example, if you submit an invoice for them to be able to pay you, what the bot actually will do, it would auto capture the information, whether it captures it from an email or from a PDF document, for an Excel, for a Word document. It will be able to read that and then capture that actually into an ERP or a finance actually software. So that's actually the context actually of what a bot actually would do. Now there are many actually whenever you actually have had an incident in insurance, you'll have to actually submit some paperwork. That paperwork needs to be captured into a system. And once it's been captured in that system, it will have to be then actually assessed. And I'll speak about how the insurance companies today you can send a picture of your vehicle which has been damaged in a car accident, and the bot will be able to take a picture of that damaged car, and it will compare it to the picture of the new car, and then it will be able to generate instantly the estimate actually of the amount to fix the car. So you don't have to wait for an assessor, but the bot actually will be able to do that. So that's just one of the examples, but I mean, you can, there's many other examples in HR, in supply chain, and all of that. Just do want to mention that obviously in terms of the bots, the types of bots, there's two types. There's one bot that will require human intervention, which means that the portion of the task that it does will also require a human being to actually execute. So it could be that it captures the invoice, but you need a human being to approve or to make the payment. So that's what we call actually an unattended bot. And then another one would be in an unattended bot. It will be that it does everything end to end. And for example, if you send an email and with certain keywords to a particular company and you make an inquiry, there will be a way the bot will be able to read what you have sent. It will be able to actually respond appropriately because it can actually pick up the keywords and it actually packages actually an answer for you. So, and that will be actually one of the examples where we have what we call an unattended bot. So now, what is a bot and what is it not? One, it's not a humanoid. A humanoid is the one on the far left, the one that's supposed to serve coffee or water. And it's also being from this part of the world, it's also not a robot. It's not a traffic light. I know in South Africa, traffic light, we call it a robot. It's not that, but it's also not actually a robotic arm. If you look at actually the manufacturing of vehicles, there's something called robotic arms, and the automation actually of plants like PLCs, which is what I used to do back in my life. And that's not actually what we're talking about. But now the question is then actually, what are we talking about? And that being said, is that I do want to set the context that says there are many products in the RPA market, and automation anyway is one of them. We had to choose that one. We went through an extensive actually selection, but the context of it is that if you look at the robotic process automation market, it's expected pretty much to reach about $26 billion by 2017. It's already sitting at about $7 billion as of last year. And these actually figures, they show that it's an industry that's growing. It's actually growing because with so many systems that people are buying, there's so many, there's so much complexity that grows. So for example, integrating multiple systems, getting systems to talk to each other and share information, it's becoming more and more harder. And nowadays, you're not only just sharing with enterprise systems, but you also have like mobile apps that you need to share the information with. And what that actually says, then it means that with the increased amount of complexity, there's increased opportunity for robotics, actually process automation. And then that's the context. And obviously, very briefly, and as I said, automation anyway, it's a global product. It's in more than 90 countries, more than close to 2 million bots have been actually deployed. In fact, one of the largest organizations that has the largest deploy, it's called NTT. They have about 17,500 bots displayed. And obviously you can actually equate bots to human beings. So RPA, it provides more capacity for companies to execute more work with very, very little actually human interaction. And then we're going to talk about that. But I mean, I just want to show that it's a highly credible product. It's actually out there. That's why we actually chose it. And I also do want to just set the context here, which is there's different levels actually of automation in service delivery. There's automation at a point where we call it an RDA, desktop automation. So if you're sitting in a contact center and you're capturing information through somebody who's talking on the phone, and you can automate that, the capturing, which is actually mastering the keystrokes. There's that actually level of automation. Then there's RPA that I'm going to talk about. And then further down, then there's the different levels of artificial intelligence. What determines what's suitable for what environment? Normally it's got to do with whether are you dealing with structured information or unstructured information. And I'm going to be speaking about both actually, because the tool that we use it handles structured information and unstructured information. And then what do I mean by that? Structured information would be, for example, if you have an ID number from South Africa, it's got 13 digits, it's always going to be 13 digits. So it's in numerics and it's only 13 digits. So that's structured, it's always the same. It's easy for a bot to actually read. Now, there will also be a time when the information is actually not structured. So the bot now needs to figure out what is it that you're trying to do. So for example, in Pretoria, the postal code is actually 2000. And whenever you type in Pretoria, it should be able to actually auto-pick the fact that that is actually 2000. Another example with the same invoice I was talking about. Now, if the bot is reading, it's actually reading an invoice, the invoices will be structured very differently from one company to the next. And also what's included and what's not included could be different. And in that case, it will actually be able to read that regardless. So that's where you need a bit of artificial intelligence. And then I'll just touch on that. And obviously today I'm just actually introducing the subject. We can always have in-depth actually discussion actually in this space. Now, what is it that people actually are automating in general? There's a lot of data capturing where people are capturing data actually into a system. And there's also a lot of processes where the data is being enriched. You could be modifying the data. You could be actually taking a spreadsheet. For example, if you are an accountant, you're doing a month end, you want to reconcile your accounts. You've got 5 different departments, you need to reconcile all of those. And a bot will be able to actually take all of the 5 spreadsheets and combine them and produce actually a report. That would be one of those examples. Data validation would be, if it's an ID number, it can actually validate it. If it's a postal code, you can validate it. You can validate it with another system or another spreadsheet. So in the same way that a human being actually would actually do this. And that's what actually the bot would do. And then obviously you can process that, you can reconcile information, you can report on it. And what I do want to just highlight is the fact that there's a certain level, cognitive actually level, where you need to be able to read the information from a document. And we call that actually OCR, or optical character recognition. This is when the software can recognize on a piece of paper or in a PDF, or in an email or another system, it will be able to read like a human being actually would do. And then obviously there will be the processing of it, which is where the RPA will actually come in, then the reporting of it. That whole spectrum is actually called artificial actually intelligence. So robotics process automation is only a subset actually of artificial intelligence. And there is a lot more obviously that we can highlight, things like machine learning, but I just want to set the context is that actually the overall is AI, and then RPA is actually a small component actually of that. The industries where we've been playing a lot, as I said, in the insurance space, and there's whether they processing claims, in banking when you're originating loans, where you can actually email actually your bank statement, the bot will read your statement, it will pick out all the anomalies, it will pick out all the things that are actually the bankers will be doing. And what does that then actually leave the banker to do is only to validate the information. So across these industries, actually, that's where we actually play. These are examples. I'll share these slides and so that we can interact a bit more Now, it's important to actually recognize the fact that when we spoke about digital workforce, we're not talking about the replacement of human beings by software called bots. We're actually talking about augmentation of humans with actually software. So there is no way that you can actually automate somebody's job in full. You can automate maybe 30% of their job, but not actually in full. There's so much more that human beings actually do, which will still be required even when you are in automated fashion. Granted, if your job is do nothing else but actually process manual activities, then that could be actually replaced. And obviously the correct term for it is that we increase operational efficiencies. Those are the business benefits. It's about reducing manual touch points. And instead of having an invoice touching 10 people before it gets paid, and a bot can take actually out maybe 8 of those actually touch points. And so it's about actually lowering the labor of cost. A nice thing obviously about a bot is that it's fast and it does what it does in split seconds. It's accurate and it's always available. It doesn't get stuck in traffic and obviously doesn't take time off. There's a human actual aspect that we can talk about there. But also the nice thing, as I said, one of the examples where we are detecting fraud in one of their banking clearing houses and also ensuring that they comply with the Reserve Bank. That's part of actually the benefits actually of having RPA. The nice thing about it actually, RPA, it does it the same every time. So it doesn't really deviate. And obviously that empowers people to innovate and do other intelligent stuff. And also you find that actually people like myself who are lazy, I'd rather do much more complex stuff, and all the mundane, repetitive, boring stuff, if a bot can do it for me, then actually I'll be quite actually delighted. So that's actually some of the business actually benefit. So I just want to maybe, I will actually take a break and just show you one example, the invoice processing verification actual approval, and in terms of how that actually work.
The entry and approval of an invoice in an ERP system is a very common process that occurs in almost every enterprise. This process typically involves the receipt of an invoice from a vendor, the manual entry of the invoice into the enterprise's ERP system, and then a human approval for each invoice. This video demonstrates how Automation Anywhere automates this process with ease using IQBot Intelligent Document Processing in conjunction with RPA. Let's take a closer look at how this is done. With RPA, new invoice documents are immediately downloaded from incoming emails. These new invoices are then uploaded to IQBot for processing. IQBot extracts the data on the invoice into structured CSV format. RPA can then log into the ERP system, in this case SAP, and use the formatted data to enter in all of the required information for the invoice without human intervention. First, the learning instance in IQBot must be trained to handle invoice documents. Desired label and value pairs are mapped on the training documents, and extraction configurations are specified. This allows for variations in document formats and layouts that can be processed. After the learning instance is set to production, IQBot is now ready to process files. The next step involves building a task bot, which executes all the automation functions like downloading the attached invoices, sending documents to IQBot, and entering data into SAP. Before the invoice can be paid, the procurement department must check that all the products from the vendor have been received. Once the products have been received, procurement confirms the reception in a goods received document in SAP. The bot looks inside an email folder containing emails with invoices attached. Now, to process the invoice, simply click the Run button and let RPA handle the rest. The invoices are automatically downloaded to the file system. The taskbot uploads the downloaded files to IQbot. IQbot returns the new invoice data in CSV format. The taskbot now logs into SAP and goes to the Create New Invoice page. The taskbot enters in all the necessary information about the invoices using the data extracted by IQbot. The invoices have now been generated in SAP. The invoices are automatically checked with their corresponding purchase order and goods receipt. If all fields match up and there are no exceptions, the invoice is automatically approved for payment. If there are discrepancies between the invoice and the purchase order or goods receipt, the invoice is then sent to an accounts payable manager for further review. Automating everyday business processes, like the invoice approval process, greatly increases the efficiency of human resources and accelerates the procurement process, saving time and money with drastically reduced human errors.
So that's one of the examples, obviously, that that we find in most businesses, actually, which is invoice capturing and three-way matching and making sure they, you'd be surprised. And in one of the banks, we're doing, actually, we're looking at duplicate payments. You'd be surprised how many people get paid twice because there is no controls to actually manage that. And obviously that never gets into the public, but then with robotics, actually in one bank, within the second month, we already were saving them close to 400 million because they were actually just duplicating actually payments, and then using this technology, we're able to actually help them. So just in short, in terms of the digital workforce, we're saying that pretty much what it does, it acts like a human being, it thinks like a human being, and it also then analyzes like a human being, but it does not replace a human being. And I think it's quite important that actually it augments actually what human beings actually will do. And what I do want to do, most probably, I have touched on this at a high level, which is more what we call RPA. It actually handles structured data, more rule-based. And obviously what we call an IQbot, it's a lot more for unstructured data. It's within the same platform. And then you have bot inside that actually does the reporting. Because in terms, if you're processing invoices, you want to know how many invoices have you processed, how many were successful, how many were not successful. And obviously the IQbot would actually read actually out of an email or of a PDF. So I thought I actually should just actually give that context. This slide may sound a bit more technical, but what I want to highlight is that within the same platform, we also have what we call actually a Botstore. A Botstore is like an iStore. The reason why we created actually a Botstore is because we're trying to democratize actually access to robotics. I know everybody in this, and everybody tend to think that such a software platform will be so complex that it requires coding. And this platform is for business users. It's for people who are either accounts payable clerk or or debtors clerk or creditors clerk, people that actually at that level. It's written in English, it's a drag and drop. And obviously, if in another time, we can actually take you through that. But we also have pre-packages, stuff that's already been developed for other clients, and we put that actually in an iStore or Botstore, and you can simply download it. And I'll actually just show you in terms of the next slide in how Microsoft actually has tried to automate what you call the Microsoft productivity with Automation Anyway. This part here really talks about how every person in the future, we believe, should have an assistant. In the same way that everybody has a PA today, an assistant, and we think that actually in terms of robotics, virtual assistants actually it's what we're actually working towards. And what does that mean? If you're an accounts payable person, you're supposed to be actually making you're supposed to be actually paying suppliers. And quite frankly, when you're on leave for a week, you can actually simply download a bot and then point it to your ERP and let that actually work in your absence. And also you can work in teams, and then we have what you call an attended automation 2.0, which is it's about automating a process, not just one process, but multiple processes interacting with human beings. As an example, if you make a contact to a contact center of your insurance, and you want to add a new vehicle, you find an agent. The agent, obviously, the bot would actually calculate how much you need to pay. If you don't like that, then the bot would actually then escalate it to the manager, and the manager will escalate it to a bot. The bot would do the actual calculations, how old you are, how long you've been driving, how many accidents have you had, and it would actually recalculate and then circle back actually to the agent. And then that's where actually when we talk about digital workforce, which is a combination of human interaction and actually digital workforce, which is actually software. And that's pretty much actually what I wanted to highlight there. And obviously I'm conscious of time to give some opportunity to answer some questions. The new Office 365 and those that actually will use Office 365, you see that there's a lot more on Microsoft Azure that's been actually deployed, where you find that actually within Excel, Excel spreadsheet, there will be a button similar to that A that we have actually on the far right for Automation Anyway. If you have run a spreadsheet, but then you want to run the spreadsheet actually every other Friday, you can actually simply click on that button. It will launch a bot, and the bot will be auto-configured, and it will also then obviously run that bot every time. You can schedule it yourself. So you don't have to go out of actually Office. You've been Excel, or you've been MS Word or PowerPoint doing what you do, or even your email for that matter. You can decide in terms of how you want to automate that process for yourself. This is for you creating a virtual assistant for yourself. So this is we're not just talking about large systems for large enterprises, but you're talking about you as a user. You'll be able to actually apply that in your sphere of work. So I do want to just highlight, this is my second last slide, and obviously I'm going to land it. There's an ecosystem of making sure that customers or even individuals are successful in robotics process automation. A lot of people are still overwhelmed by it, and it shouldn't be, quite frankly. And once you've touched it once, twice, and I'm going to be sharing after this in terms of access to what we call a community edition. This is a platform where you can have access yourself to play around with it, to create, and we have examples of how you can create your own little bot, and then it will show you examples of how we've done it. And then once you've done one or two, and obviously you'll be able to actually see that. There's various training that's available. There's various engineers and professional services that's available. Obviously, us as a money business, we provide that in the South Africa, or actually there's the Sub-Sahara actually region. So this has been well thought through the past 16 years that product has been around. But more than anything, if you want to learn for the first time, that's where actually I want to focus on, and which is where most probably I'm gonna finish, and which is there is what we call an Automation Anyway University. It's affiliated with a lot of universities, and there's been more than 500,000 active users on it. More than 1 million trainings have been offered, and lots of actually certification, both online, and some of them from virtual training in the way that we're doing now. We have plenty of sessions like this, and if Waterford actually want, we can organize to make sure that we definitely can take people through how to create your own little bot. And we have Botstore, where people actually do competition on how they can create the best actually bot. And there's certification for it, and there's experts obviously that are available. And if you look at that actually, that Automation Anywhere University URL, you can definitely actually reach out to them. And as I end, I do want to highlight the fact that lots of universities and schools like Waterford have taken this thing up. It's for free, by the way. And then we, and I had actually at some point approached the University of Eswatini to actually have a look at setting up actually a lab. We can definitely set that up actually for you for free. The likes of Harvard and the likes of University of Melbourne, all of these have actually set up these labs. And our interest obviously is so that when people come out of school, they come out with the capability to actually automate processes. Because the future, in the same way today, when you get employed, they expect that you know how to use Outlook or email or Excel. It's an expectation. And then the next obviously phase would be people that expect actually that you can automate your processes. You can use actually a bot to be able to do what you have to do. That's going to be the expectation, which is why the new Office 365 actually has been infused with automation actually in it, because that's where actually we are going. So I think I should take the time to say then thank you at this point in time for allowing me to share what I'm passionate about and what I do. And obviously my journey from Waterford has led me this far. There's some of my excited team members in our office. And yeah, so maybe let's take the time to actually take some questions. I know the time was a bit rushed, but I think I've shown you, hopefully I've shown you enough for you to actually start thinking maybe it's a career you might want to pursue. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Thabo Ndlela, for such an insight for discussion into robotics and IA. So we have a couple of questions. I'll start with the question from Eleanor Laurie, who asks that you speak about business benefits. Would you be able to tell us something about the social benefits of robotics as well?
So let me just make sure I understand. Would I be able to tell you the benefits of?
Robotics at a social level, since you've been mentioning how economically they are beneficial.
Yes, I mean, definitely. So if you look at actually, and I didn't want to labor the point about COVID-19. In fact, Automation Anyway was one of the first that actually really got out there to assist. So for example, a lot of the testing which people are doing, the capturing of that data and the creation actually of the data store to be able to track who was in contact with who. You heard probably from South Africa that Discovery and Vodacom that got together. They say, how do we then, if Thabo says that I've tested positive, how do I then actually start testing in terms of who has Thabo been in contact with? And then obviously from your GPS, your phone location, already I can tell who have you been with in the same space. And that information, capturing that information, and obviously robotics is actually one of the capability that would be used. And also then the artificial intelligence actually out of that, running a model that says actually, what's the likelihood that actually you would have actually spread it, and how far you would have actually spread it. And I'm not talking here hypothetical, it's something that's already been deployed and using robotics. So that's one of the social actual aspects how actually robotics actually have been used. There's many other obviously cases in terms of social welfare where it's been, but the COVID one is actually a lot more recent. And the only thing I don't want to bring it because everybody has been COVID out, and we've heard way too much about COVID, but that's one of the instances.
Oh, thank you. Another question from Mr. Vanille Nkambule is that how do you assure those who are skeptical about RPA and IA that it doesn't lead to the exclusion of human workforce?
So, I mean, if you can mute. So I think the one constant in life is that, you know, change is always going to be happening. So there's no way one could be comforted. As long as you remain the same, then you'll be left behind. That's why I'm having this conversation. In the same way that, you know, some of us, when we started working, Outlook was only available to managers. In fact, in the internet, you have to be a manager to have access to it. And then today, it's day to day, you know. So it's what we actually live with. So what I do want to say is that there is an opportunity to acquire new skills in RPA and AI and be part of the change, because the more we automate, we need more people to actually automate. To be frank, I mean, I was talking to somebody about the fact that we are bringing people from India, from Sri Lanka to come and help us in South Africa because we just don't have enough skills. And so which is why we're open to setting up labs and training and online and all of that. So as long as you take up the opportunity to adapt, and you know, there's nothing to worry about. But that being said, even if you are not an RPA expert, to be fair, there's no way we can automate most of your job. And up to probably 30% has been our experience, which is quite max, that you can automate somebody's actually job, but I don't think you can actually automate the rest of their job. You still need somebody to deal with customers with empathy, to listen to customers. A bot won't be able to do that.
So we have Sibongile Gumbi, who says, thanks Thabo for an informative and insightful presentation. What pain points in business is the technology designed to address?
You know, it's manual processing is one, which is with most companies. There was a time when they were buying lots of systems, and because they wanted to improve their business, they want to get a competitive actually advantage. But what they found that actually then they created complexity, you know, because, you know, it's kind of like when you have when you have 2 phones or 3 phones, synchronizing between them is a nightmare. And because there's just too much technology actually that's available, and to keep it in sync is a problem. So that's been actually one of the problems for me, has been that I've seen actually in business, is that getting to systems to talk to each other, to share information, and also to make sure that the information is correct. So if you look at capturing information, validating information, reconciling the information, reporting on the information, and most of the reporting in business, it tends to happen, you know, let's say a week or 2, a day later. And as you know, a day later is too late. You want to be able to report real time as it happened. And robotic process automation is at the heart of actually automating that. And it always actually going to proactively execute consistently. And the other thing is actually the number of errors that people do in business. It's scary. As I talk about duplicate payments, it's one area. I mean, some people that are in audit, they will tell you what they pick up actually when they do audit is quite scary, and it's a large organization. So I think that those are the pain points that I think most people actually target with RPA.
Oh, thank you. So we have Yusuf Ismail and Mr. Vanille Nkambule. They have similar questions. So Vanille says that currently they have been the role played by bots in manipulating social media, as in modern hacking. So how do you protect us from the malicious use of bots? And then Yusuf says that when it comes to the collection of big data, there are many concerns about privacy, especially in the wake of things like Cambridge Analytica scandal. So what sort of measures have you put in place to ensure that customers' data is protected? So can you answer these questions?
So you know, there's a saying that says, any fool with the tool is still a fool. Technology does not on its own make decisions. Human beings actually make decisions on how they want to deploy technology. So for example, you can use it for good, you can use it for bad. So talk about using for good. I made an example about where we are detecting fraud. We are stopping, obviously, people from stealing other people's money in a bank. We've run algorithms. We've actually established the patterns, and then we're able to actually pick that out. So I would say, one, data governance, and to the last person, in terms of actually, there has to be governance within the company, whether it's IT governance or data governance or security governance. And there has to be an ecosystem where that governance is in place. Then the automation that happens, it needs to happen within that. So I think if you do it outside a governance, like IT governance, you're definitely going to find that obviously there will always going to be misuse of either data or misaccess of data or denial of access. And then somebody talk about actually the Cambridge story, which is, I mean, those are human beings. I mean, the way, you know, they deliberately ran models and they created actually algorithms that would favor a particular outcome. And as you know, it's like in research, if you want to prove something, you can always find the data to prove it. But it starts with the human being, and which part can only be actually secured via governance. So that would be my generic, actually. Obviously, I'm happy to have specific controversial discussions over a beer whenever it's open. I have my views on the Cambridge story in terms of how they did those models and being a data scientist, but then also there's plenty that we can do better as human beings and use technology for good than for bad.
Thank you so much, Thabo Ndlela. One last question, looking at the time, is from Mark Adewumi, who says that to what extent can this technology foster the growth of African countries?
So if you talk about, I mean, the growth would definitely come from just speeding up execution in Africa. I don't know, I've traveled all across. Everything that we do tend to be quite slow. If you are going to open a business, and let me speak about certain countries, if you're going to open a business and it's going to take actually, or you're going to apply for a passport and it's going to take weeks. The reason why it takes weeks is actually because the execution at the back is manual, and robotics definitely can speed that up. And that's one. Two, also to limit the errors that get generated. So if you think about it, if you are part of a Chinese delegation wanting to come and open a business in Swaziland, and it takes them, like, say, 14 days to open an account and open a business and all of that, and you definitely will not be actually pleased. We do need foreign direct investment from across the globe. And we do need to be efficient in terms of how we execute on that so that we are able to secure these investments, because that's what creates jobs for us. Because not everybody can start a business, to be fair. And those that can, then we should make their lives actually easy to be able to do so. I think that will bring growth. And that being said, in the context actually of the entire actually African continent, it's a large market. It's full of opportunities. But our execution is always comes short, and in South Africa, we're currently dealing, with an intervention, that was made for COVID-19. The beneficiaries of that have not even received it because the execution really just falls short, and it's not automated, and there's loops and there's gaps, and then obviously people have taken them. So I think automation, or hyper automation as they call it, is at the heart of business growth, no matter what business you're in. And the more you can automate your business processes, the more you can churn out for less. And I think the more profit that you can make, and the more people you can employ, and hopefully the more lives you can impact actually out
there. Thank you so much. Would you like to, in the interest of time, just give us any few last words in a minute or so?
So I mean, first of all, Charles, just thank you for that opportunity, and you know, and having been part of the culture at Waterford, and for me, certainly to open my eyes to diversity all across the globe. So I made lots of friends, and some of them I met them there, and some of them obviously we have even actually tried to do business together. And I just want to say that obviously as a context, so that everybody understands that the person that you are sharing either a room with or you are sharing in a class with, then that's potentially your business partner in the future. And then obviously treat them kindly because they'll be of use to you. And it's been quite awkward with some of them that we had common room scraps those days actually in the common room. And then later on we meet again in some of the boardrooms and we still look at each other funny even though we are smiling 20 years later. So what I do want to say is that you always be kind to the next person next to you. And you never know who they're going to be tomorrow. I never thought I'll be here myself. And then obviously I'm spending the rest of my life trying to make amends with all of those people that we need to actually live with and also do business with. So thank you for the opportunity. And I just want to extend an invite to the fact that I have obviously my Twitter handle and also our website. You can get hold of me and email, and let's share a bit more information. I'm quite happy to have in-depth sessions, even those that actually want to pursue actually the idea of setting up a lab or establishing some training, get access to the software. It's for free, and obviously I can make that available. So thanks very much for the opportunity to actually share with yourselves.
It has been an honor having you, Thabo Ndlela. I would love to also relay our sincere gratitude to you. And I would also like to relay sincere gratitude to the Advancement Office that organized the Alumni Speaker Series, to the Africa Week that also set aside time so that we could have this speaker series, and also, most importantly, to the audience for their questions and also listening to our engaging speaker, Mr. Thabo Ndlela.
Thank you so much, Thabo.
Thank you very much. And please, I'm going to hang around if people have questions. I've got time, and those that have time, they want to ask a few more questions, please shoot. Yeah, the session is obviously officially closed, but I'm happy to do that.
Thank you, Thabo.
Hi, Thabo. This is Liz Mangami. I have a question, sort of a follow-up question to the idea, or at least the skepticism around this fear of dystopia that we're going to be replaced by machines. Your answer to it was that there is always going to be a human need in the process, and that there needs to be training or upskilling, however you want to refer it, of the current workforce to be able to be integrated in how RPA works. Right now, where are the leaders in terms of global orientation in doing this and sort of matching the skill set of the workforce with the technology?
So I think first of all, let's probably establish in terms of what catches people's interest. I think profit does. So anyone who's in business, whether it's large enterprise or a small one, they have a great interest actually in making profits. And they know that the number one asset that you have in any business, it's your people. People asset are the most important. And I am well aware myself, and I've learned that, you know, as clever as I can think I can be, I can't be everywhere at the same time. I'm fully reliant on that person who's sitting in front of the customer, and that customer must be happy and pay us, and we make profit, and then we can employ more people. So that being said, I just want to just set the context so that it's not that they don't have an interest. They definitely do have an interest, and they know that people actually are the most important actual asset. So the number one thing that has to be a primary focus for most leaders is to train and empower your people, and give them an actual opportunity so that they can grow. Because in that way, if you can read, the cash flow quadrant, and then when they talk about actually when you're an investor or a business owner, the idea is for you to do less and people to do more. And then, so I would say that actually it's a primary focus actually for most of the organizations that I work for and some of the customers that we actually are assisting. In fact, and one of the customers talking about for fraud analytics, they've taken their whole staff team to actually on RPA. We did only about 4 or 5 processes. They want to do the rest themselves, obviously, because they realize that, you know what, and if we don't do this, there's a potential, obviously, that our role could be replaced unless we actually adapt. So I do not want to lie to you and say that there will not be replacement of certain tasks. There's some tasks that can be replaced, but not jobs. I think a job could be 100 tasks. I think, and I can say between probably maximum 20 or 30 tasks could be actually automated, but not all of them. Let me give you an example. Customers like, for example, in Africa, people like dealing with other people. They like talking to other people who show them empathy, and people who understand the culture, and people who understand the sensitivities, and also people who understand the politics. And in fact, if you work in a corporate, 80% of what you do is to manage those things, is to manage perceptions, politics, sensitivities, culture, diversity. That's 80% of your job. And then the rest of the manual stuff that actually take place, quite frankly, that can be automated. That's one. Number two, most people actually are so overworked. They spend hours and hours, and I know that actually for some of the CFOs and accounting officers, they spend the weekend doing actually financial reconciliation every month. They call it month end. It's month end. And because they're doing so much stuff, and all of it is actually, mostly is actually all the mundane, repetitive stuff of which can be automated. And then they can spend more time applying their mind actually to what is it that's been produced. So that's what I would say, that the true leaders are focused, or business leaders are focused on developing people and training people, because that's how you make your profit.
Mm. And you think the employer, sorry, follow-up question, do you think the employer would still be willing to pay for a reduced task job, if I could put it that way? You know, if it comes down, and to be sort of facetious, if it comes down to just me pushing a button, is that still as valuable as it was when I did all the processes manually?
So employers, they pay for outcome. They don't pay for task. So if you think about it, at the lower level, those guys are so hardworking. They work 24/7, but they get paid less. And the guy that works the least gets paid more. So you don't pay for number of tasks, you pay for outcome. So if you are a CFO, you get paid a lot of money. All you are supposed to make sure that your numbers are correct. Make sure that you've complied with the financial regulatory governing bodies, depending on which country you're in. Make sure that the shareholders, actually, they get their dividends. That's what a CFO does. And their work is more thinking than anything. People are paid more for thinking. They're not paid for the number of tasks that they do. The people that do menial tasks, they tend to be paid less. So to answer your question, would the employer still actually pay? Yes, because they pay for outcome.
Thank you. There's a question here from Miss Ramila Patel for you. She just says, thanks so much, Thabo. Great presentation and good to see you after so many years. I can't wait to have my virtual PA. How soon can this happen? Thabo, Ramila is waiting.
Ooh, I'm getting a heart palpitation. She was my teacher. Great to connect, Ramila. Hopefully we'll definitely connect. I can actually take you through how you can get a virtual assistant actually going. And in fact, it's something that most probably we didn't spend enough time talking about, which is now we're not talking about just corporations now automating processes. You're talking about people automating their own lives, you know, which is the various menial tasks that you do. We all have budgets, you know. If you have a family, you have a budget. You need to make sure once you've actually done your purchases and reconcile that and compare to the budget, and then you sort of, you know, where you're at, and you can control your spending and all of that. So we all have that. And what I'm saying is that the next level would be, which is actually, it's the current level, because I mean, the Excel is already automated that way. You can run your own personal spreadsheet, your own personal budget. It'll be able to actually to tell you, you can set your own limits, you know, and then you can obviously start interacting with it in a sense that if you exceed, what can you do, and many suggestions. So yeah, and I definitely think that it's a reality of today, it's not future. And again, I've said to some people that this is going to happen whether we believe it or not. Most people, they tend to think that, you know, the longer we resist it, you know, the longer it will take. But it doesn't quite happen that way. You know, it will come, it's already here and it's happening. And we should actually embrace it. And there's so much training available. I'm quite excited to link you guys up actually with the community edition, get for you to actually start playing around with it, and also give you access to some of the free training. And those that want to obviously to become robotic process automation experts, my hand is up. I'm quite happy to guide and see how we actually can work together.
Thank you, Thabo. We'll definitely make sure to follow up on that. I think, you know, it's a discussion that we're starting to have as we are now, you know, a virtual school and students are attending college online, about where we are as an institution with technology and how does it sort of fit in to the day-to-day learning, and how does Waterford, through its identity, continue to deliver on some of those intangible values like social justice and things that are more philosophical in thinking and that require human-to-human contact to discuss. So it's been a really interesting journey. Thabo, do you have the capacity for one more question?
I got all the time. My day is ended, and yeah, and quite frankly, I'm quite happy to take as many questions as possible.
Okay.
I'll still be in. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yusuf would like to know, what do you think about using blockchain technology for the purposes of auditing and verification?
So it's been deployed definitely in audit, and you know, I don't want to pretend that I'm an expert actually on blockchain, but what I do want to say that actually it's been used a lot in contracting, in auditing. The controls are a lot more robust. I think that's the beauty actually about it. What I mean by that is that if a human being, so for example, somebody asked a question about how do we make sure that the bots don't go rogue, they don't start doing things that they're not supposed to do. And what I'm saying is that normally a human being will set actually the control to say, you know, let's talk about a budget limit, you know, or a credit limit in a bank. And if you set it, actually, it's been set by somebody. They were supposed to set it at 10,000, and somebody decided to set it at 20,000. After following all of those processes of the bank, and then they were supposed to set 10, they set it actually 20 by error. Blockchain, actually, that's really where it actually works the best, because actually the authentication of transactions versus actually the controls, that's what it's actually a lot more stronger in. So for auditing purposes, definitely, but even better for operations processing. So which is actually, as you transact, you're transacting actually against an algorithm of blockchain to be able to actually establish what limits do you have, what's allowed, what's approved, and it keep everything actually links. I do think that actually it has a huge potential, particularly obviously in our African market. That being said, it works best when there's automation. And so if you think about most of our processes, if the world is still manual, I mean, I've been places to look at the justice system, you know, dockets gets lost. Look at the health system, where you find that actually somebody's file has been, you know, misplaced, or certain things are misspelled. There's no, you know, somebody was supposed to come from a simple operation, they come out with an amputation, you know, all of those things. Actually, we still have those things. So a lot more still needs to be automated first before we then actually start applying blockchain actually to it, to make sure that the environment is controlled. So that's my general actually view, but I'm not a blockchain expert.
Thank you. And then Mark would like to know, what are the possibilities of bugs affecting organizations with this technology?
So malfunctioning of software is always actually a possibility if you insert actually a malicious software into it. One of the aspects, if you remember the video, we're talking about that we have bank grade security actually on it. You know, we have fairly complex actually security that runs this. One of the reasons is the fact that in most jurisdictions have certain level of security required for banks, for insurance companies, for them to operate, because they understand the risk that it actually can actually introduce. So I do want to be honest about the fact that I know that software can always be, you know, if somebody really has an intention to actually introduce malware on it, I'm sure they will be able to. But on a normal basis, there's so much investment that actually goes into security, because security goes into the heart actually of the software. And if anybody were to say that it's actually unsecure, then it would not just impact the company, but it actually would impact the entire ecosystem. So I'm fairly confident that there's a huge amount of investment. That's why most banks actually prefer it. But that being said, obviously, and software can always be actually, in fact, the biggest threat in any software is human beings, not outside of the organization, inside the organization. So if somebody inside the organization decide to do something, you know, is very little that you actually can do. And the question won't be the software. The question will be actually the person that actually did that.
Interesting. Lots of opportunity for sabotage.
Yeah, internal, I mean, if you look at actually information security has becomes the biggest actually industry today. And purely because the more we advance, the more threats we introduce, and then the more protection we need to make. We need to actually protect actually the environment. And I know one of the banks, I mean, the amount of money they invest in security is mind-blowing. You know, just to actually understand how much money they actually spend on it, because it's a real threat, and it's big, you know, and sometimes now people have, but obviously the criminals are equally getting clever and clever, and yeah, it's just the world that we live in. But you keep adapting, and if you keep ahead of it, and I must say, all the software actually industries globally, and as you can see, all the largest companies now are software companies. Even those that were not software companies, now they've become software companies. So, and the whole world is actually exposed when it comes to information security. And equally, there's so much investment that goes into making sure all systems actually are safe and secure.
It's really interesting, and it actually just reminded me that Catherine Hunter put in the comment. I don't know if you saw that. It's not really a question, but I think I was just wondering what sort of relationship a company needs to develop with their employees to ensure, you know, before they invest in that level of security, that, you know, employees are happy enough not to want to sabotage. And Catherine says one implication of automation is that all those preparing for the world of of work must give particular attention to the human attributes such as people interaction, teamwork, empathy, intuition, conflict management, and anything related to attitude and heart connection, because these will not be replaced by machines. Do you see that there being, you know, sometimes the world of work is called the concrete jungle. It's almost described in a separate or not connected way to the worker, and we can, you know, all go into Karl Marx and have fun. But do you think that it will get better, this interaction between the employee and the employer because of this technology, based on just sort of what Catherine is talking about, the human attributes?
So one of the business benefits, I think, you know, one of the points that I probably didn't cover, it was definitely on the slide, it was about actually creating an environment for employees to be a lot more happy. And what makes most people unhappy at work, it tends to be work that's not meaningful. So if you do work that's not meaningful, you tend to be unhappy, because you tend to feel that you're also unappreciated, you're not appreciated, and you're not valued, you know, you're not you're not empowered. So that's what actually tend to make people actually unhappy. And with automation, we certainly see that if a huge part of what people do, I mean, if I were to take you through one use case, the one I was talking about, which is there's a banking clearinghouse. It transacts 66 million transactions a day. And then somebody needs to actually produce reports the next day to all the banks. It's about 23 banks. And on the 66 million transactions, they need to report exceptions and all of that. And can you imagine doing that every day? Every day you need to produce this, and it's urgent every time, because so you can't be late, you can't be this, you're always rushing and all of that, because you need to produce this because it's a requirement of the Reserve Bank, and also the banks want to know, you know, were there any frauds that had happened. This is a combination of credit cards, you know, real-time payments, EFTs, and all of those, and then they need to report on that. As exciting as it may sound while I'm speaking, but it's so boring. Every day you run around with like 22 spreadsheets that you need to send every morning. And that person cannot be the happiest person, no matter how much you run, no matter how much you like spreadsheets. I don't think you can be. So that's a very important work that needs to happen. It is an impact of the licensing of each bank. Now, us having automated that person can only be happy. That's my actually argument, that if anything else, then it really depends what is it that you automate. And I think there's a science about how to pick which process to automate. If it's large number of transactions, it's repetitive every day, every hour, every week, and you need to produce a report actually out of it. The bot actually can dish out the report. In fact, I mean, I had actually thought of doing an actual demo, but I thought it would take long. Hence, I just put actually the demo on the video just to actually explain how it happens. But you will actually be able to see how much you can actually transact. In this particular instance, we're talking 66 million transactions actually a day, and you're churning out 23 spreadsheets the next day, and you do that actually every day. That's a lot of transactions. So my take is that actually people will be a lot more happier doing meaningful work, work that's valued. They want to apply their mind. They want to make important decisions. That's what people want to do. And I don't think they want to sit there and run spreadsheets.
Richard Alexander's in the comments, breathing a sigh of relief that teachers are safe. They're not going to be replaced by the RPA anytime soon. But again, on behalf of the college, I'd just like to thank you for spending this evening with us and sharing all your knowledge. And more importantly, thank you for your willingness to continue to engage with students and other alums in the space as you grow your business and share your knowledge. It's been really, really interesting, and I'm sure there'll be people that will be reaching out to get in touch and to keep the conversation going. And I hope that, you know, as soon as borders open, you will come back up the hill and hang out with us for an afternoon or two.
No, definitely. I would love to do that. And yeah, and feel free to share my email address. There's nothing private about it in our website and our Twitter account. Yeah, people should reach out. Obviously, I'm quite excited about this. I must be, not because I'm in business with it. I see the opportunity in terms of how it can change people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I also would like to also share more information in terms of things like the COVID-19, how actually RPA has been used for that, and how it actually helped. And I think it may actually enlighten a lot of people. So yeah, thanks for the time. And then you do enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. And everybody have a great rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. That was wonderful.
Thank you, everybody. So informative. Thank you very much.